Okay, hey everybody, I'm Mason. I am a recovering codependent. Amy will get mad at me if we don't keep her time schedule, so I'm going to start right at 2 o'clock. Sounds good? Perfect. First of all, this is my first CoDA retreat. This is my first time ever doing a type of workshop. So bear with me. If it's something that you find halfway through you're not invested in, it won't hurt my feelings if you go find another room or go canoe or do whatever. But don't feel like your codependency is making you feel like you need to stay in the room here if you don't feel like it. So that needed to be said. So I know the part of this is navigating marriage through recovery, or even salvaging and saving a marriage through recovery. But it's not just marriage. It's any type of a relationship as well. Because marriage is a relationship. And if it's okay with you guys, I would love to make this a little bit more interactive. So anytime you have questions, just ask. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Or if I ask questions, if you feel like having an answer, fantastic. I think it'll help the flow of this move forward. Everybody agree that's an okay idea?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, how many people started their CoDA journey because of a failed relationship? Or failing, absolutely. How many of you started this as a way to try to get that person or relationship back? Some people, okay. Codependency is pretty cruel, isn't it, sometimes? So there's always something that triggers us to get and start this particular journey. Mine was a little bit different. But ask yourself, why are you here? Think about the choices you made that got you into this place right now. Why are you here? What is your goal? When I started, my goal was to get my wife back, to figure out what I was doing wrong, to figure myself out. All the wrong reasons when I started in, now looking back. And I did not, as you say, get her back or get us back until I changed my goal, until I changed myself. So, let me count the ways. Personally, I've had several failed relationships. I've lost friendships. I've had 3 failed marriages, 2 divorces. Now I'm happy to say 1 saved marriage. To my best friend. But before I get to that, let me go back. I'm going to go way back to the beginning. Okay? I grew up as a middle child, even though I tell people I was the oldest, because I kind of was. And I grew up in a middle-class home. Both parents were alcoholics and tempers and their own issues. And me, as a Generation Xer, I learned how to survive. Actually, I learned a lot of things. I learned how to take care of myself. I learned to seek those that made me better off. I learned that if I mastered a new skill, my parents would give me a moment. I learned that other families were happier than ours. I learned that if I acted a certain way, I'm accepted at a friend's house, and that's always better than being in my own home. I learned that alcohol is very controlling and changes lives. I learned that people would like me and want me around if I changed and did things for them. I learned that when people go away, it's hurtful. Excuse me. And I feel lost. But I need glasses now, sorry. I had a huge escape. We're all here at this camp. I had a camp growing up. It was, I went to the same camp every summer, every couple, 2 different sessions. One was a choir camp, one was like a district church camp that we were at. And it was amazing. And when I got a little older, there was also a third one, was a long weekend like this one in the wintertime that they would have. And I had the same friends from the time I was 8 and 9 years old up until now that we just kind of clicked, and it was the same group. We were there every single time, and we became family. I saw them as my real family. I know people say you can't choose your family. I disagree. You can't choose your family. You can't choose your blood relatives. You can choose your family. This CoDA kind of feels like family sometimes, doesn't it? Okay. To this day, there's a group of us, this 6, that are really close, and we vacation together. We just went to Galveston for Labor Day weekend right after I got back from being overseas, and stayed there the whole time. All right? And as a child, I had another escape from my childhood trauma. I had my grandfather. He was my hero. He would pick me up every Friday after school because he saw that I was the one that was being neglected and needed something, and he filled that void. Selfishly, I think he would stop at any McDonald's, maybe 5 of them, if I asked him to the journey to his house to get a Happy Meal along the way. He'd take care of me. He taught me how to be the man I'm still becoming now. I learned more what to do from him almost as much as what I learned not to do from my existing parents. So he made me truly feel loved and whole. So trigger number 1. Just after I finished college, he passed away in 1997. Everything changed. My world came crashing down, and codependency took over and manifested in so many ways that I didn't even know codependency, what that word was back then. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? No. I know you're probably going, you're talking about relationships and marriage. When are we going to get there? I promise it all comes together. So at that moment, I felt alone. I'd never been alone before. I had parents and siblings, and I had him. He was my family to me at the time. And of course, I had camp friends, but that was it. But something took over for me, and I didn't want to be by myself. I didn't want to be alone. I needed someone to be with me. I was codependent on somebody else. And that first trigger started all of this. So I didn't want to be alone anymore. And so I met somebody to fill the void. She was older, like 10 and a half years older than I was. She was ready to settle down. I didn't want to be alone. And we got married 8 months later. And she was a therapist. Perfect, right? You would think? So, well, looking back, I realized that she had her internal clock ticking, and I was too scared to be alone. For a while, it was fine. We had our first child in the year 2000 and our second year in 2002. Both of those were girls. Things were going fine, except I was still growing up. I was young. And 4 years later, I realized that we had nothing in common anymore. We didn't like the same food, the same people, the same music, the same church, you name it. We were on different area. Because at the time, I did what she wanted to do because, hey, she'll love me and accept me for who I am when I do that. And then I started going. And I just hadn't matured yet. And you hear people in the office, oh, this employee needs to be more mature. That's like telling someone to be taller or shorter. You're the same. You're only as mature as you are. So we decided to separate. Even though we never really fought too much at all. It was time. It was hard on the kids. And damn you, step 9, I'm still working on that. But trigger 2. So first marriage, we decided to separate. I moved out, got my own place. It was a loft-like place in the Heights area of Houston. Kind of trendy, kind of fun. I'd never done that before. It was close to work, but only 30 minutes for my kids. I unpacked quickly with like the minimum amount of stuff. If anybody of you ever moved out from a relationship, you get what you get, right? And I felt accomplished that I did something. I made a change. I'm moving here. And I've got this place. The next day I woke up and it was quiet. I didn't even have a coffee maker yet. So Anybody else ever leave from like a failed relationship and all of a sudden you're a minimalist and didn't realize it? Oh, okay. That's what I was at. So I got ready and left and went to work. At the time, I had a job in an entirely different career than I'm doing now. But I had coworkers aware, and some of them even helped me move. So the topic of the day, or the water cooler talk, as people used back then, was asking about how I am and settling in, etc. I get home, and that sinking feeling that here I am, all alone, no one to talk to. So I got on MySpace. Anybody use MySpace before? Okay. True story. I'm gonna just see what's going on. I kind of went down this rabbit hole because I just moved to this place. The internet's connection just got hooked up. Like, oh, this is fun, and went down there. And I was mainly just satisfying curiosity and passing time. But then I found an old high school girlfriend on there, and she was my sister's friend. I use sister as a quote. It's not my real sister. Back to my childhood trauma, my parents. My grandfather at that time had moved to Arkansas in the early 90s, and my friend Tony and her family, I call her my sister, she allowed me to come live with them my last year of high school. So she became my sister, which was great. We had wonderful, she's on the drill team. They had lots of drill team girls over. Loved every minute of that. But we'll move on. We never really dated when I was in high school, but because she was a year younger. But the summer after I graduated, we dated. Super innocent, try as I may. But we lasted like less than a year right there. I was off to school, going off to Korea, and she was a senior in high school. At the time, she was married in North Carolina somewhere, and again, I'm just on MySpace going blah, 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 right? So we chatted, and I found out she was coming to Houston for something, and she asked, hey, you want to meet up? We'll come back to that in a minute. So, just to recap. I'm living on my own, first time, all alone. Texting then was still pressing like the same button a few times to get the letter that you want. So I started not being at home. I started going to bars. I started going to bars after work, sometimes with co-workers, sometimes with not. Anywhere but that quiet pressing at the house, all alone. Being in the bar is fun. You get to meet new people, lots of drinking, smoking. I mentioned the alcohol. It's all there. So what could go wrong, right? So day in, day out, work, sleep, drink, lather, rinse, repeat. Oh shit, I have kids and I love them, right? And I miss them and I want to see them. So how do you balance that out? So when it was my time to be with them, I stopped everything. It was just dad, just there with them. That was my goal. It was easy, since being a codependent person that I am, that fulfilled those motions when I had my kids with me. I was figuring it out. I was still just surviving. But when they were with me, they were my focus, and they were my entire life. When I was alone, I was still feeling the booze with the time with booze and strangers, right? So, moving on. The high school girlfriend, said she was coming to town. We met up at a bar, of course, because that was the thing. Sparks flew, and by the end of that night, I'm pretty sure we were a couple. She was leaving her relationship in North Carolina and moving back to Houston. That was filling a void for me, right? So she moved, and instead of my little loft that I had, we got an apartment together. Y'all are thinking, this guy's crazy this way. Right, so she moved back to the apartment. Life was wonderful. I'm with someone that I actually care about. She cares about me. We were both happy. We knew each other's history and story. We were happy. I mean, even giddy. And we were in the apartment. We even hung out with the neighbors at the apartments. There was an older couple with a daughter our age, and other people around this apartment. Those fitness centers. I'd never lived in an apartment in my life. It's a whole adventure, right? So the other neighbor that was older, he kind of reminded me of my grandfather a little bit, so it kind of drew that in there. But because before that, my grandfather was my only father figure. I have a father. He's still here. I'll talk about him in a little bit. But he never really was a father. And even bonding with him, you got to do something he likes to do, or he had some experiences of his own that kept him from being able to be there and be what everybody needed. So anyway, there are other neighbors. It was fun. Then we decided to get a house together. So we were just renting, thank goodness. But we moved in and things were good. You know, there's less alcohol, less going out, more settling in. And then her issues got presented out where she smoked a lot of marijuana. Never been my thing. If you're all for it, great, you know, but never did much for me, and it's not a vice for me. And I saw that. I struggle with it because she never really did that around me, but you know, right? I felt like she didn't like me unless she was high. I felt like I'm not enough, and she needs to go hide and do this to tolerate being around me, which was a problem. Then trigger 3 happened. I had a good career going, and this is now 2008. Recession hit. If anybody remembers that, it's pretty bad. So I got laid off. And I got another job that was, well, just a job to pay bills at that time. It was just a paycheck. So I spent more time at the house while she went off to work. And I started thinking, hey, I wasn't good enough anymore. And my fear of abandonment at that point took over. And I self-sabotaged the whole thing quickly. I started losing her because I had my walls up and because I was expecting something else. But I got another job then that was back in my previous industry, a few steps below from where I was, but we're still recovering economy, everything's fine. But back to the relationship. She never knew her biological father until she was 30. Her mother was also a huge alcoholic. Like we would joke that if her mother calls after 7 p.m., don't answer the phone because she's through that carton of wine already and it's not even worth the conversation type of childhood trauma that she had. So I keep picking the right people for me. I don't know why. It's not working out. But she went to Al-Anon meetings. I'd never heard of it. She asked me to go with her. I'm like, okay, cool. She goes, there's coffee. There's sometimes donuts. Okay, fine. So I didn't know there were donuts from yesterday, but I went to go see what it was all about. So back then, I just didn't get it at all. Right? And we went to go visit her mother up in East Texas. And her cousins were there. I think it was for one of her family's funeral. And she had one of her, and I brought my 2 daughters, who were a little bit older than at that point, with me. And we rode up there and did the thing. And I remember her cousin asking me, hey, do you mind taking me over to a friend's house? I need to go pick something up, Mountain East Texas. So one of my daughters got in the truck with me and he came. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be nice and good. Drove like 30 minutes down these back roads and hills. He gets out in this sketchy little trailer and comes back 20 minutes later and I bring him back. Didn't think anything of it. Later, I found out that I took him to go pick up a bunch of drugs and had my daughter in the car. Really infuriated me when my girlfriend at the time told me about it. And that kind of started this. Later on in life, he went to his own 12-step program. He called me and wanted to meet up to do his step 9 with me. Again, I didn't know anything too much about the steps at that point. Told him to go pound sand. Now I have issues with that, and I've now written out to him to try to step 9 to apologize for that. But we'll move over. I thought I was lost her. I thought I was losing her. I don't know why, and I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I sent her flowers to her office anonymously and then lied about where they came from just to test it. And she was smart enough, figured it out, and I stood by my guns at that point, and the relationship was over right there. So I lost her. I said that I left. I said her drugs are more important than me and everything else, but it was my codependency that led to it and my own self-sabotaging behavior. So what do I do at that point? I'm codependent, can't be by myself, I want to please everybody, and I have to be there. So what do? I started spiraling again. Started drinking, smoking, bars again, right? So remember when I told you all about the neighbor and they had a daughter our age? So what do? So I start talking with her, and we got drunk one night. And I said, I just want someone to be with. She goes, me too. And one of us, I don't remember which one, said, hey, let's just get married. I'm like, okay. Why not? I screwed everything else up. I was like, why did I get married? I thought it'd be good for my kids at the time, and hey, I wasn't alone. Well, right about that time, I get a job offer to go back up the rungs of the ladder in my industry and move to Florida. So I did. Loved it. I was so far away from my kids. She was not ready to be a stepmom or married either, but the kids came to visit. It was like 1 month in Florida, and I already knew I made a huge, horrible, absolute horrible mistake. It's all coming together, I promise. All right. I knew at that moment, I wrote it out to the summer when the kids went back to Texas, and I called one of my camp friends, one of the group. We've been talking for a while, and told her about my misery, and she and I have known each other since we were 9 years old. She and I kind of dated in high school. We went to prom together, but if I remember how the story goes in my brain, she called from a different high school and said, me and boyfriend broke up. Can you be at my grandparents' house? You're taking me to prom. Okay. So, anyway, I called and told her, you'll see kind of how things are coming together. We're getting back to it. All right. So, I stayed in Florida until my contract was up at work. And, but I would still call her all the time. Mostly, I would complain about my spouse, and she would complain about her spouse at the time. And I made the call. I called her and said, okay, I'm done. I'm done with the spouse. I'm done living in Florida. I'm done with being away from my kids. So I moved back to Texas. I was jobless, homeless. Again, back to not many possessions at that point because I just left and said bye. And I had another childhood friend that said, she said, guys, come stay with me until you get your, a job or a place to live. So I did that, and it was just her and her daughter. So she was, she had a lot of chores and stuff in her house. So it was a perfect fit. So, and then I would stay there. And then almost every night I was going and hanging out with my friend that I called from camp. We'll call her Carrie because that's her name. She was still sharing a roof with her spouse at the time, but they were at that point where they're separate rooms. It's all financial constraints. So she had a son and two daughters. We've known each other forever. Both of her daughter's first sleepovers were at my house, the one after I got the apartment and stayed with. So we've always, been close. We've always been family friends at that point. So the new plan. Right, so you always have a plan. You got to move forward, right? No. So my new plan, she couldn't afford the house alone, and she was miserable. So we decided that the best plan was that she would officially leave him officially, and that was it. And I would move into the spare room to help cover the bills and leave the new person's house. So we discussed it with the kids, and the youngest, who's now 17 now, said, I love this line. So she goes, so it's like a sleepover, but every day? I said, yep, that's exactly what it is. So anyway, finally I got a real family. Welcome, the kids. I feel lovable and loved. Fantastic, right? What can go wrong? Yeah. All my needs will finally be met that I've missed my entire life. I have a family. Wonderful, right? So I started the same sabotaging behaviors. It was quicker this time because her personality was very similar to mine. And I've loved this person in my entire life and didn't even realize it. So we stuck it out, and vice versa. So we lived in the house for 2 years together before we decided to get married. I'm going to go back to our personalities, and some people can relate to this. If not, she is very much an extrovert, and you wouldn't know it, but I'm actually an introvert. And I've learned something about introvert and extroverts, and some of us have discussed this. Extroverts pull the energy away from the introverts. That's what they feed off of. Introverts are happy-go-lucky, but their batteries are draining, and they need, for me personally, I have to go away and recharge my batteries, or that's it, I'm done. So as you probably saw me, I snuck away yesterday just to get away. You ever plugged in your phone and sometimes it goes, hey, fast charge, it'll be charged in 20 minutes, or sometimes it says 15 hours before it's fully charged? It just depends on where you're at in your life. So that was our personalities. And we've had very conversations before about listening to each other and the conversations that we have there. But most of the delay why we waited 2 years is we both needed to get divorced. But that's a whole different story. So we had problems, huge problems. I felt unequal. I felt unloved. I felt taken advantage of because I felt like I was doing anything, or what do I get out of it, right? I feared abandonment, that my world's going to come crashing down again. So it all started over again. So love and then fight. Losing the kids in my relationship with all of the children over my actions and my behavior, because I went spiraling out of control, saying, all right, I'm going to do this before you do this to me type of behaviors. So I'm all alone, except for I wasn't, right? I wasn't alone. I still have one of my oldest friends as my spouse, and when we lived together, it broke both of our hearts to have so much anger and sadness and doubt clouding us. She was a fixer. She always did things for everybody. And I got to the point where I felt angered and unequal. And I remember saying, entering the fight, you'll do anything for everybody else, but not one thing for me. In reality, none of that is true. All she was doing was things for me and for us, because that's her codependency. And it just manifested in a different way. So again, sound familiar to anybody in this room, wherever you are? Okay. And I needed them, and I couldn't be alone. So there we are. So we would drink too much, and at the bars, and then we'd smoke, cigarettes, of course. Most of our fights were stemmed after alcohol when they came in. The root issues probably all came out after drinking, because we so desperately wanted this story to work. How often you say, my prom date and I are getting married, knowing each other forever, all of that nonsense. But we wanted it so hard, but we had so many root problems with ourselves that was preventing us from being us. So it's all coming together, I promise. So next month, and I started making changes. Next month in October will be 5 years since I quit smoking cigarettes. I started vaping. Next month I did vaping for 2 years and slowly knocked the nicotine down. She started vaping too. She just quit this summer, so I'm proud of her. But it'll be 3 years that I quit vaping or had any nicotine next month. Super excited, changed my life. I also gained a whole bunch of weight, but after that, moving on. So the other man in my life was my Uncle David. He was my aunt's husband. He kind of stepped in and became that father role after my grandfather died. He passed away last summer, a year ago June, up in Dallas, which is trigger number 4 and the final trigger that started me where I am now. Summer 2023, my marriage hit a breaking point. In fact, she used the words as, I'm okay and I've accepted that you're not going to be in our life anymore. It's kind of big, right? Losing my uncle started that, and I just went to a whole new place that I didn't recognize at the time until where I am now in CoDA. All right. I knew I needed to work on myself, and I knew I was because I was not only going to lose another wife, third one, but my best friend as well. I had a tough decision ahead, and she was enough for me to break the cycle. We were enough. So we discussed it, and we knew that we both needed to work on ourselves. And if y'all ever meet her, I'll let her tell her working on herself and these things that she was going through. But we knew we needed to work on ourselves before we could be us and be that story that we wanted to be. So I moved out. I got rid of I had a sailboat, got rid of that, and bought a big trawler boat because there's plenty of room to live on it. And I moved it down to the Kemah area in Clear Lake and Galveston Bay. And I felt like at that point I could just cast off and go. I met all kinds of new people at the marina. And I even considered it a lot, slipping back into that lifestyle. My wife, I'm sure, thought it was over, and that was my new life, but I remembered her and her kids, and that was my now goal at that point. That's how I started, right? So, and I already knew what the problem was. I looked into doing the therapy. I've talked to some therapists before, and I knew my root issues. Every time I looked in the mirror, I knew what the problem was. I was codependent. I was codependent because I had childhood traumas leading to fear of abandonment, and that led to everything I was. And mostly presented itself as an abandonment type issue. So, inner CoDA. Anybody have a quick story on how they found CoDA?
I can share. So, going through a divorce, I was recommended a book by people at work, and it was Codependent No More by Melanie People. And I didn't open that book for 4 months. When I opened that book, on page 4, there was a paragraph that described my entire 10 years of marriage. 10 years of marriage.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I said I need help. And that's when I went to CoDA.org, found the meeting, and I've been there ever since.
Thank you, son. Reminds me I got to pull something else here next. Okay. Anybody else? Quick one. Similar situation.
Yeah, 30-some years ago, well, I've been in alcohol and started before 3 years. So I knew the process, and I went to my daughter invited me to go to codependent on this Halloween dance, and I met my wife there. And I didn't know I was codependent, but I started dating her and she used CoDA. And I realized that the disease underneath alcoholism is codependent. And then I was drinking to medicate the pain of that. So now we've been CoDA for 30 years, and we've been married. And it's one of the things.
Nice. Everybody has their story, right? Is how they found CoDA. I remembered going to those Al-Anon meetings, and so many years before, and I saw a brochure about codependency. Didn't know what it really meant, but I also remember a conversation with my therapist friend, who kind of grew up in the same church. And anyway, she officiated my third marriage, attended my first wedding. So she knows my history. She knows my crazy mother is one of her friends. We're going to avoid, after the time, not to bring up the mom stuff because it's not that long of a session. My mother's batshit crazy, master manipulator, alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. Not awkward at all that I went to this person to find out, right? So there I was living on a boat, and at the same time, I said, I'm going to make some changes right now, flat out, not just emotional and mental health, physical health as well. I had gained a bunch of weight since I quit vaping. I decided to change my whole diet, start exercising quite a bit. I assume it was a distraction mostly to lose all the weight so I could focus on myself and not go into bars and everything else, but running instead. Because again, this time I'm working on us, like moving out and living in a boat with the marina with all kinds of distractions and fun. Anyway, so I just Googled codependency. I was like, oh, there's one right down the street from you. I'm like, really? Cool. Ironically, at the Up the Street Club. But it was a Thursday. It was September 4th last year. I was like, okay, let me go check this out. It's right down the street. If it's bad, there's a bar right down the street. I can go there afterwards. Anyway, I decided to go. I found this whole new family. It's small, this particular group, but it was very supportive. We were the same. We're all on different paths and different ways to get there, but we're all going the same place. So I absolutely loved it. And I remember tearing up and feeling a huge release as I did my best to describe the journey that I was going on and how CoDA was my guide and navigator to get through that for me. And I got a chip. Wonderful. Everybody get a chip on their first day? Yep, okay. How many people still have them with them right now? Okay, right. I had attended many meetings, and the anger of me leaving the house was still there. When I say we decided what was best, is I said, I need to work on me, you need to work on you, I'm leaving. So she was at a loss, and she, I assume, felt like I was already gone. I think it was between my second and third chip that I actually shared with her that anything about CoDA and the work that I was doing on myself and what I was doing. Because there was a period where it was like, let me work on me, we'll figure this out later. And I remember her pausing for a long time, and she was on the phone at this time. And I'm literally on the back of the boat, rocking in the waves, beautiful sunset, going, damn, this could be really good. Nope, this is why I'm here. And I remember pausing and on the phone, and it's kind of hard to read the room when somebody's on the phone, but you have those long pauses, right? And she was saying that she felt like it would not be enough and that I also need therapy before that was her first comment. Well, that's not enough. You need to do therapy, you need to work on you. I was like, okay. I said, I see what you're saying. So she just didn't feel. So to me, the CoDA meetings were the best therapy that I ever had. I was committed to working the steps and working on me for us. Realizing then I was really working on me, and that allowed us to be us. So the holidays came around. This was September. Fast forward a few chips later. I went out of the country for Thanksgiving by myself. Didn't do anything with her family or my family. I was just on my own journey. Then Christmas came along, and it was the first Christmas away from her and her family in 10 years at that point. She and I had Christmas together a few days before Christmas down at the boat. It was set up to be nice, and I got her, as symbolism, I got her her own fishing pole and reel, letting her know that she's welcome here and this is our place that we can do here. But it kind of got destroyed over the night because she was in an argument with her mother, and that was on the phone the whole time that we're trying to have our moment. I was like, all right, that's kind of fun. But at that moment, any other time when I was trying to do that for us, and I said, here, this is an offering, this is what this means for us, and it got destroyed by her family. Any other time, it would have had this giant blown up screaming, your family this is horrible, just do one thing, this is not fair, blah, blah, blah. I didn't lose my mind or my temper at all. Before CoDA, it would have been this huge thing. So, fast forward, because at that point, if it had been this huge thing, we wouldn't even talk for 3 days. After that, it'd be, we're not talking, we're going to ignore you, pass each other in the hall like you don't exist. I'm sure people have been there. So, we continue to navigate us and grow a few months later. See, we never really got to know each other as a couple because we were just kids that grew up and decided, hey, let's be a family. So, everything just happened so fast, like my other marriages and every relationship. So, the weekend. We decided, I asked her, this is in March, and I asked her if she's willing to go out of town with me for the weekend. And after that weekend, we would know without a shadow of a doubt if we were going to make it or to get divorced And she said yes. We didn't discuss where we were going, what we were doing. I just did it. And we got in the car, and I'm in the car. We decided to make it work. I went and took her back, and she didn't even realize it. Even when we pulled in, she didn't know. She thought it was just a round trip. I took her back to the camp where we met. And we walked around, saw how time has changed the buildings there. And she thought we were just visiting. No, we had a room there. We stayed the whole weekend. It was wonderful. And we did the reminiscing, and we talked about how we want to be together. This is where it all started. We're going to go back to the beginning. And I asked her a few questions. And I said, let's write these down, spend some time apart, get back together later this afternoon and answer these together. And this is what changed everything. And after this, our motto has become progress, not perfection. It's kind of our theme now. And I'm going to try my best to get through 5 questions without pausing or choking up. Question 1, I said, and we both answered these. What are things you like about me/us? Question 2 were, what are things you dislike about me and us? Because we tend to fake things, right? And just go with the flow and never have that real, honest moment. Question 3 is, what is our biggest obstacle and how do we fix? Question 4 is, what is one positive thing or outcome of us ending our relationship? Pretty powerful. You're asking, what is the greatest thing about us not being together? And then the last question was, what do you want to do about it? How do you fix it? At the end of it, we said we're in and we're going to do it. We've been listening to a lot of relationship radio. John Deloney, the podcast, is where, if anybody ever done those. But it's difficult to do progress and not perfection, and learning that your spouse and you are entirely two different people, especially when you're both codependent. I'm big on analogies, so I want you to just picture a brick here and a sponge here and a pitcher of water. And we say all the time, you're not listening to what I'm saying. I am listening. It's like, no, I'm pouring water on a brick and you're listening just to respond. I'm trying to pour water on a sponge for you to listen to understand. And it's really difficult. And just to sum all of this up, because I know we're running out of time and I apologize. How do you work on you when the work you're doing on yourself is hurting your marriage? Right? To work on you, you're going to be neglecting your family. But are you better off doing that, or has the damage been worse than that little time away and time out or pause that we learned today? We've learned to grow together, to be silly together, be real and be honest, and take a pause and a time out. Things we've never done before. Love, I say it's very easy to love somebody. But trust is very difficult. And if anybody's ever broken your heart or you lost trust in somebody, that's really difficult, even if you love them, to get it back. For me, my family was all alcohol addiction. Her family was all drug abuse. And we've learned now how we're going to work on it. And it's as simple as this. You take your moments for yourself. You understand that you're not perfect. And you have the ability to give yourselves time out. And if you have that option to move away and hit a long pause, you absolutely need to do it. But the most important thing that I've got out of recovering and saving a marriage and relationship is deciding and laying out the pros and the cons, if you will, and actually admitting what is something positive about us, just walking away. And sometimes at that moment, at least it worked for us that way, is, Everything else is more important, and we want to be together and work on ourselves separately. If any of y'all ever meet her, you'll probably hear most of the same story, but she'll go on more, and probably she's a teacher, so she'll sum it up more fast than I rambled on. So, since I've been in CoDA, my father now, I've seen him before I started CoDA. I probably saw him 4 times in 16 years. I've seen him 4 times now in 8 months. It's amazing, and I think it may be his own mortality. I don't know what, but he's reaching out, making the effort. He's doing the work, which makes me want to work harder. Any questions? I know it's a little different than y'all wanted to do, but thank you for listening. It's part of my best recovery to share my story, so thank you very much.